Okay, number two, the client has bought some old industrial land and wants to use it to build 150 townhouses. In your initial look at the zoning code, you realize that the manufacturing district the site is in does not permit housing. What is the logical suggestion you might make to the owner? So then you have a couple of different possibilities. A, change from a subdivision to a township jurisdiction. B, become politically active in the area. C, PUD. D, variance. So obviously become politically active in the area, that would be a great idea, but that's not really the number one thing you're going to be talking about. That's something you would want to do anyway if you're going to be putting that many houses into a space, but that's not it's not really a reasonable architectural answer. So it's not B. Change from a subdivision to a township jurisdiction. You don't get to choose your jurisdiction. The jurisdictions exist, so it's not A. If you are in a subdivision, that's the jurisdiction. If you're in a township, that's the jurisdiction. So we can't choose A. So then the question comes down to PUD or variance, and actually both are potentially plausible answers. Variance in this kind of situation, this kind of context, refers to a way of changing your site's relationship to the zoning code. So there are setbacks, there are districts, there are height limitations. There's a whole series of different things that the zoning code is going to put on any one site. And you can often alter those at various levels of intensity by asking for a variance. Then you have to get approved, and if you get approved, you can move ahead with the project. Something like going from manufacturing to a huge 150 unit residential, that's much bigger than a typical, like, I just want to go from a 10-foot side yard setback to an 8-foot side yard setback. Something like that would be a much more typical variance. Sometimes you might be able to go from a M1 district of a certain kind of manufacturing to an M2 district, something that's very close and similar, but a little bit different. It allows you to do a subtly different, its permitted uses are subtly different. So variance is certainly a plausible answer, but it's actually not the best answer in this scenario. The best answer is going to be C, PUD, and a PUD is a planned unit development. Now, in order to kind of make it a little harder to guess on this particular version, I said PUD. On the exam, I believe they would actually spell it all out and say planned unit development. So they're not going to try to hide it in that kind of way. So that's one of those examples I was talking about the way that we've worded this. But a planned unit development is that situation where you have an idea, it's a good idea, you think the city or the municipality or the township is going to like this idea, but it doesn't currently fit to the way that they've organized the zoning code. So what are you going to do? Well, essentially, you make a proposal and you write a new zoning code just for that site. And you write it, and you write out all the different things, like what the setbacks are going to be and how the street lighting is going to work and where the roads are going to go and all of that stuff. You make something that makes sense to you and that you think would make sense to the city, the municipality, the township, whatever. And then you give that proposal, that proposed zoning ordinance for this particular site to the local zoning official. The local zoning official might review it. They might talk about it, say, well, I don't think this is a good idea, or have a little back and forth. So then maybe you rewrite it to sort of fit to their needs. Once they accept it, then they would then take it to the local city council or whatever system the local municipality has for governorship. And they would then vote it in or vote it down. So just like any part of the zoning code, it's like a law. Codes are a little different from laws, but they're essentially, for our purposes, they're kind of like a law. And how do laws get enacted? Well, they get voted in by the city council or whatever the entity is. And so they would vote it in just like any other part of the zoning code, just like any other part of the law of the land in that municipality. And then if they say yes and they vote it in, then it literally becomes part of the zoning map. It literally goes into the zoning code. And so it might say planned unit development number 7,242. And there'll be a little line that says this is kind of what's happening and this is where the information for this can be found. And so it becomes literally part of the zoning code of that place. So this would be a classic example where you would probably need to do a PUD because it's too big a change for the various forms of variances and changes from the normal zoning code. Some places like Chicago, where I normally am, oh, got a phone call going in the background and I don't know how to turn it off, apologies. Some places will use slightly different terms like planned development, and planned development is the same as a planned unit development. And there's a couple of other examples like that, but essentially most of the country will use the term PUD.
Mike, could you just pause for 1 second and maybe just say that over again? In our recording, we're going to cut this section out.
Okay.
And maybe just say what you were just saying again for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
So most of the country will use the term planned unit development, but some places like where I normally am in Chicago uses actually planned development, a PD. But everybody essentially uses some version of those two or some related version. And the exam, as far as I understand, at least in previous years, the exam has always used PUD for this understanding. It's an important concept because zoning codes are written and they're important for kind of a town to be able to organize how development's going to happen and how economic development happens. But if you are overly prescriptive, then you potentially are stopping development, and the towns don't want that. They want to be able to encourage development. So there needs to be a structure that allows that to happen, and the PUD is sort of one of the big ones for these big type changes.